What is up, everybody? This is Hater Radio. My name is Chris McLean. Opinion besides just myself and Ian's opinion. And without further ado, Mike, let's talk about last night and your opinion on what happened during this game. Go ahead, Mike. Mike, you there? Oh, shit. I think we lost him.
Nope.
Son of a bitch. Mike, you there?
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, all right. Go ahead. So I was just teeing it up. We're trying to get your opinion on this game and your thoughts of Billy Napier's future at Florida as well.
I mean, he'll be back next year. So, I mean, the whole thing, like, bottom line, you can record aside, unless he was going to, go defeated, he's going to come back next year because it's just had a contract. Just a couple things. One, how his contract structure. So he's always getting year 3. But a lot of the main thing a lot of people aren't realizing is Scott Strickland, who, I mean, I loathe him, but I'm pretty sure everybody does. His job is most likely tied into Billy. So Billy's going to get every resource available, as he should, but Scott Strickland's going to go above and beyond a lot more than he would for this hire because he can't mess up another head coaching hire, especially football at the University of Florida, and expect to keep his job. So next year is a whole different story, obviously. Hard schedule. However, we are returning a lot of people, but in terms, we were ranked this year. We got the road win that we couldn't get. You have a nice win over Tennessee at home, and there's some opportunity to finish the year. We're one game from being bowl eligible, but the funny thing is that people before the season, everyone knew it was a rebuild. Billy said that when he was hired, it was a rebuild, and I know he had far from being perfect, but Vegas had the season at 5.5. We have 5 wins, so people just want to make up narratives because it's convenient, or they see some stuff on Twitter, and it's like, dude, Vegas. So once again, Vegas it's going to come down to wire. I think we finished with 6 wins.
Yeah, I fully expect him to be back.
Yeah.
I guess I'm the most frustrated thing about the last couple of games. I saw someone post about it where it's like Arkansas scored 39 against this defense, and then the week before and the week after scored like 3 points. And it's like, I don't know. I know a lot of the issues are, people making bad angles on tackles, poor tackling to begin with. And, it's just frustrating because, some guys are in position while other guys are not on defense. And then, there's a lot of young guys as well. But from last night with the LSU game, obviously what I think like a lot of people have called for like most of this year has been a change in offensive philosophy, maybe play calling, maybe taking Billy off of that. But, scoring 35 against an SEC opponent and scoring 36 the week before.
Yep.
It's like it's not like they haven't been scoring. Like, Trey Wilson is a great part of this offense. Trevor Etienne has scored 3 TDs in last night, and then had a remarkable game overall. Honestly, that run game was running people over in the middle third of the game. Like they had their way with the LSU defense for the most part, except for like 2 3 and outs that really kind of brought the offense down. But I don't know. I guess, you could also point out that people have been complaining about the special teams as well. But last night was probably the best game that the special teams had all year. And they got that turnover that resulted in a touchdown. And it's like, I don't know. Mike, what do you see that Billy Napier has to do in this offseason to really move this team forward and build the confidence of the fan base back up.
Yeah. Oh, and last thing on that, him being back, they're not paying a $30 million buyout right after the Mullen escapade. So, what does he need to do? He needs to make some offseason. He needs to make some hirings and firings. My opinion, we definitely need the O-line. The O-line coaches need to go. My main big thing on is discipline, and they're not disciplined. I know that a lot in the day that comes back to the head coach, but especially when you have the two O-line coaches, I don't mind it, but if you have two, you need to be that much superior than the rest of your position groups. I think I like Billy G. Appreciate what he's done. It was hired late in the coaching carousel. I think he needs to go as well. I like Jaluk. I wouldn't mind if Mike P is gone. And one Coach Chaos is to me he's underwhelming. I wouldn't mind if he stayed, but we still don't have a nose tackle. It's I've been harping on this for years, and it's kind of important. As you can see, once you have set up the middle, it kind of changes things. So and I haven't seen a lot of development there, just to be honest with you. So honestly, just a major. Besides Jaluk, I don't think anyone should be safe on the offensive side, and if I see one or two defensive folks go, I'm okay with that as well. And like you were saying, alluding to previously with Billy, I mean, listen, Billy's not an excellent play caller. Has he improved drastically? Absolutely. I think he can be above average, but you shouldn't expect above average at Florida. So, I mean, I know for a fact we are going to get a new OC. So I'm okay with that. So, I mean, That's why when people complain week over week about play calling, like you're yelling at a wall. Like, dude, it's not going to change. We're not getting a new play caller. Especially him being the head coach, you can't delegate. It's a whole political fiasco. So, but it has improved, and it's not the reason we're losing games. So at the same time, pardon me, you hear people, I'm sure you've seen the timeline and everything, and, play the young guys. Well, if the young guys aren't ready, it's just like, and then the same people say play the young guys, argue about the wins. You can't have both because sometimes the young guys aren't ready. So that 85-yard touchdown run, that was on Jakeem. It was Thornton and Jakeem. Both true freshmen. Jakeem, the one thing a corner can't do is give up the edge. He ran down the edge, and people said it's holding this, that. Long story short, you can't give up the edge. And that's where he went down. That's a true freshman. That's a true freshman mistake. He'll learn from that. But people aren't going to say, they're going to just blame Armstrong automatically. They're not going to be like, well, you have a true freshman there. And it's just like people aren't consistent. But the main problem with the defense is the linebackers. Linebackers are absolutely atrocious. The Kentucky game, linebackers. The South Carolina game, I just looked at about 5 plays on the runs. It's linebacking fits. They're not great. Scooby's awful. James is But we need a linebacker. The room needs to be overhauled. And it's not Bateman because he's an excellent coach. So just if they actually looked at their run fits, they're literally just guessing out there. They can't break down. It happened to LSU. Scooby missing tackles. It's just a lot of this. Honestly, it's not this bad, but the linebacking fits. I think Ventrell covered and Bernie last year because he playing on Sundays right now. I think he's starting. They covered up so much, just with decent fits.
Yeah, I mean, you saw that play with Wingo getting blasted at the end of the game, and it was it was almost like a microcosm of the whole year. Wingo is much bigger than that running back, and he just got obliterated. And it's like, man, he couldn't even get off that block. I don't know.
You don't want to hear my comments on Wingo. It's he's good for.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're good, man. No, he's a converted DN. I mean, he's a nice kid. He's mature a lot. He's not a good linebacker. We don't have good linebackers. Shamar James is athletic. He tackles in space. Okay, cool. But he does his run fits. He's not a natural linebacker. He doesn't have the instincts. So if linebacker comes out in instinct. Ventrell Miller, most notably David Reese. A lot of people, he wasn't athletic, but he was He's, in my opinion, our best linebacker, and since like a deck since like Pierce or Anzalone, something like that.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's like
Been
almost
a
10
while.
years.
Been a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Ian, let me hear some of your thoughts on yesterday as well before we let Mike go. But what did you think of this game yesterday?
I mean, it honestly played out as I expected. I knew Florida was going to play well, but they didn't have enough firepower to keep up. And that's when it ultimately came down to. You can coach, you can play call as well as you can. The point of the matter is that LSU has better talent, and Florida's defense has consistently regressed as we went on. Before we went into this week, I remember saying if Florida struggled against Arkansas and gave up 39 points on defense, God help them against LSU. And they gave up a program record, which I wasn't even surprised. I was like, yeah, of course they were going to. If there was any team to do that, it would have been that LSU team. I will say, if you're going to find bright spots, yeah, the offense played well. The run game was very well executed, and like I said, run game complements the passing game. Mertz plays as well as the run game is. But yeah, defensively, I mean, like I saw that 85-yard run, and I was like, yeah, of course. I was just numb to it because the defense has just consistently regressed. I know, we had a lot of, hype around beginning of the year. I know injuries have taken a toll, but I agree. Just, you're dealing with a lot of freshmen, you're dealing with a lot of kids that just can't set the edge because they keep over pursuing, they keep, can't wrap it up. And that's not going to fly in the SEC. You can't get by. And that goes back. I told my cousin this. I said, Florida right now is a very good team in an elite conference. And they're good. Like maybe in like other conferences, they could probably sneak a few wins, but there's just too many teams better than them. They're just straight up. You can blame the recruiting from the years past. You can blame play calling, all that stuff. But a lot of the times, Florida's their own worst enemy. So really, there's nothing more you could do about it. I will say, again, penalties were at least kept down to a minimum as they were in the past couple of weeks. But overall, with the LSU game, it's about what I expected. I expected LSU to really just win it in a shootout and run up, and they did. Florida played as well as they possibly could, being outmanned and outnumbered. But the better team won and won convincingly. It went as expected.
Okay, real quick, let's talk about the Jimbo Fisher stuff. Mike, what do you think with this Jimbo Fisher stuff that Texas A&M goes after? Do they go after Dan Lanning? Do they go after I don't even know. I mean, like at this point, it's so early. I think they got the jump better than anyone else. I think they're one of the first college teams to fire their coach right now. So they have such a head start.
Well, willingly without a scandal.
Well, yeah, but so Mike, who do you think Texas A&M goes after? Like top 2 or 3 you think are possibilities?
Boise got rid of theirs today too.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I forgot about Boise.
State's OC's gone. I mean, Dan Lanning's the only guy you can go after. That's what I was talking to people about. And I think Dan Lanning's, he's waiting for the proper job in the SEC. He came into a good situation. Mario left him, crystal ball, and he elevated the program. So it can, he's definitely the number one coach on the market. He can write his own price tag, or write his own check, better yet, and they have the money. So the problem is, A&M, they've won for a reason. It's a weird program. I mean, you get the talent. It's just they've literally never won anything. So
yeah.
But no, besides Lanning, because I was kind of messing around, like, all right, because people want to hypothetically say you fire Billy. I'm like, all right, who do you want? You say besides Dan Lanning, like there's nobody out there. You got Dan Elko. Okay, Dan Elko's a very good coach, but can you recruit?
Yeah.
It's not just coaching, it's not just discipline, it's not just play calling, it's recruiting. So, all right, for a fact, for example, like Billy can recruit at a top 5 level. He can recruit elite quarterbacks year to year. there's maybe a handful of people in the country that can do that at the university, at a large university. So, Dan Lanning is I mean, Elko is going to be in the top 5.
Kansas coach, maybe. What's his face?
Arizona, maybe. I thought about Kansas, but the problem is he's at Kansas.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you're always he's in a Power 5. That's a plus, but it's a heavy risk going from. I mean, he's in the same region, so you don't have to worry about will he make it? Does he know that area? Like maybe the Arizona head coach, but I mean, there's like 3 guys. I mean, if you go back to when Napier was hired, for example, it was with Brian Kelly and Lincoln Riley. Now Lincoln Riley, look what he's doing with Caleb Williams.
Yeah,
4 in a row. Brian Kelly, I mean, in my opinion, he'll never win a national championship. He's a damn good coach. He's a ceiling. So everyone wants to yell at these names, but you got to have a plan in place. That's why sometimes it's better just to be patient. Like if you wound up being patient, it's paying dividends.
Yeah.
So I mean, like honestly, it's kind of like Elko, maybe the Kansas coach, Arizona coach, but I mean Lanning, it's kind of like you got to go all in on. And unfortunately for Oregon, like they keep hiring coaches who don't want to be there, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I don't get it. It's year over year it's happening, but because it's a good program.
Nike money.
They got Nike money. It's pretty much them out there. They cannot recruit Lincoln Riley, who doesn't like recruiting. The other guy you can maybe, and this is Lane Kiffin. Yeah. But Lane Kiffin doesn't like recruiting, but he'd be up for the task in my opinion. You should throw him the bag. I think honestly, I'm gonna go with those 2. I'd say Lane Kiffin and Dan Lanning.
Yeah, and the money is there at A&M, like it is one of the biggest endowments. I think it's the biggest endowment in all of college sports. And, they're going to put a ton of money towards the recruiting. Obviously, they had the number 1 recruiting class. What was it? Not last year, but the year before.
The year before.
Yeah, it was.
And so, they have clearly proven that they will put money towards recruits. Especially in the age of NIL, and they just need someone to fit their weird culture there. And I mean, they're good salt of the earth people, but it's a little weird there. I don't know. I've been there. I was
if you've been there, you can agree with me. Like it's one of one.
Yeah,
you can't
100%.
The only way to explain it, you got to go there.
Yeah, it really is the only way to explain it, because it's in the middle of nowhere. There's nothing for 200 miles in a circumference around that, and it's the only thing. And you got to be all in on that culture if you're going to be an A&M person. And I get it because there's nothing else there. But with the termination of Jimbo now, they can get that behind them and move forward, because there still is a decent amount of talent on that roster. If someone could step in, not necessarily in an urban fashion, like an Urban Meyer fashion, where he came in when Zook recruited, but maybe something similar. If someone is a young, talented coach that could come in like Dan Lanning, maybe he can turn that program around. But anyways, Mike, I appreciate you coming on, dude. Definitely, I'm going to get you to come on more. But I thank you for your time, and we'll talk to you soon, brother.
Thanks, guys.
All right, later, brother.
Of course. I wanted to say too, speaking of the head coaching positions, there are 2 others. Honestly, I think it's going to be Elko, former defensive coordinator, top, defense in the country those couple of years. I think it's going to be Elko. There's 2 more, though, I have seen that I could actually maybe hedge. They want the flashy one. I mean, technically, they could go after Cliff Kingsbury. I don't think that's the right hire, but if they want a flashy one, that's the one.
I mean that would make sense because of the ties to A&M and him being there during their heyday.
With Manziel, and then going to Tech, and
But he's
Well, having
been
a losing
so
record.
underwhelming as a head coach that I mean, the only real interest in bringing Kingsbury back would be if he is the OC and not the
Yeah.
head coach. That would be, and I don't think at this point where is he at now? He's somewhere.
I think he's like offensive analyst or something. Or he's at SC.
He's at SC. Yeah. He's at SC. So he's obviously trying to, do the like Nick Saban, resurface type thing, which, hey, it's a smart move, but he's had 2 opportunities. He failed at Texas Tech, but somehow bailed his way out of that into an NFL head coaching job. I don't know how that was possible.
Because he coached Patrick Mahomes. That's it.
No, exactly. And that's really what it is. But considering he's had one of the best quarterbacks in a generation, and he failed to do anything worthwhile at Texas Tech with him, that leads you to believe it's like, even when he has the best talent, he still can't, offensive wise, he's a great mind. I'm not denying that. I think everyone realizes he's a fully capable offensive mind, but we don't have much time, Ian. So let's just do USF real quick, and then I'll let you go.
The last one I was going to mention was Jeff Taylor, UTSA. He would be a great hire because he used to be a high school coach, got a bunch of ties to
is he the head coach at UTSA?
Yes, he is, and he was a high school coach for years at Texas. He would have great connections for recruiting. That's the last one.
And I did see his name mentioned. I didn't remember his name, but I did see a link with it said the head coach of UTSA. So that would make sense because it's already built into a pipeline there and a lot of connections. You never know. At this point, I think the A&M crowd is probably willing to look outside the box a little bit because they tried, going after a big name coach with a lot of money and it failed miserably.
Yep.
And, I think they could go a route like a UTSA, which has plenty of offense. He's done quite well considering they've been a group of 5 team they were in Conference USA, and then now they're in the American Conference. So, okay, let's talk about USF, and then I'll let you go. But I kept I kept looking on my phone because I didn't have the ESPN Plus, so I was just checking, the like ESPN app and seeing the game cast thing where you could like check to see where the ball was and like what the down and distance and everything is and the time. And I'm just like, oh man, what is going on? And it's like they had the ball with like 7 minutes left and they just bleed out the clock. And I'm like, that is amazing right there because they have not done that yet. I know they've been like some chances where games have gotten tighter and they haven't been able to specifically do something like they did Saturday, but that was amazing, especially that Sean Atkins catch on that third down. And, 5 wins, already surpassing all of the wins that Jeff Scott had in 2.5 years, almost nearly 3 years of football. I mean, it's not great right now because the defense is obviously terrible, but, considering the offense is one of the better offenses in the country, and Byron Brown is, on the verge of becoming a superstar that like everyone's going to know about by the start of next year, especially if he stays at USF. So it's like, I am really excited about the future for this team. Alex Golish is proving himself every week. He says the right things. He takes accountability. He doesn't make excuses. He doesn't take any gruff. And I appreciate it. As a guy, he's basically the same age as me. He's like 38, 39, and he's definitely a hard worker, and it shows, man. He looks like he's trying to like instill in the kids to put in the work ethic and to put in the effort to make a difference. That pick 6 was the difference in the game. And man, I don't know if a couple weeks ago they would have made that kind of play, but they did. And the defense stepped up in certain aspects. And I don't know. But Ian, I want to hear your thoughts on this because I've been talking way too much on it.
Yeah, so watching the whole game, my God, they gotta make it always so like heart attack inducing. But for real, right out the gate, and this is something that needs to be addressed. As good as the win is, this does need to be addressed. USF can have these hot starts and then peter out. They need to find the consistency. And don't, it's like if you win $100, you don't want to spend it all in one place. You want to kind of cut it out a bit. That's how I always make that analogy. But right off the bat, first quarter, you're up 17-0. Offense is rolling, shutting down the defense, getting a bunch of sacks. And then they just, left the door open. And really, it was the defense that saved the day in the second half. This was a very bipolar game. The offense did especially in the third quarter, did very mediocre. Besides the touchdown, they really couldn't get anything going. And at that point, I think they were just playing keep away, which is good. But when you're playing Temple, I'm thinking, you know what, you have some leeway with this team. But the defense came up huge. The pick six obviously was big. All the turnovers they were able to force. And another thing I want to discuss too that needs to be addressed: the points off turnovers. I think it was like 3, maybe 10. They had 4 turnovers that whole game with great field position and weren't able to capitalize. You have to do that when the team is giving you the ball, literally just handing it to you. You have to capitalize. There was, they missed the field goal. Then there was the one where they literally lost 16 yards and went 3 and out. You can't let that happen. But regardless, USF found the way to win. And we talk about that a lot, but this is the truest form of it. They were trying to hang on to that lead. They were playing, we've had that saying where it's like sometimes, teams play not to lose instead of to win. USF was playing to win towards the end. Defense stepped up, got the turnover, and then they, got just enough for the first downs. They didn't make it easy on themselves. There was a lot of third down opportunities and 3rd and 1s that the defense still gave up, still needs to be addressed. But they did just enough to get the win. I don't think with this type of game you can get away with it, say like next week against UTSA or hell, even Charlotte. But it is, still impressive to see this team, really get close with, they were up flying high, 17-0, and then Temple clawing their way back and making it much closer than it needs to be and able to put it out. Like I said, it's impressive to see where this USF team has gone. Regardless, say it doesn't work out and they miss the bowl game, which would be disappointing and it would suck. It is still, I'm beyond impressed with this team. Just like you've said, just watching the team, you can tell it's a world of different. I mean, they've had their clunkers, especially the Florida Atlantic game. But again, they're expected. They're always fighting to win the game. They don't fold. They want to win. And I think that it is instilled in the coaching staff. I think the offensive system is working. And I like the belief that you can see of the USF team that they can go on the field and depending on the opponent, they or really any opponent, they feel like they can win the game. They want to go toe-to-toe and they'll do anything possible to win the game.
Yeah, I mean, this team, the mindset on this team is completely different from the last 3-4 years. And that has probably been the best thing about the turnaround is the fact that, it seemed like, in those games where, because there were certain games in the last 3 years where the offense could put up points, but then the defense was always struggling. And it was like, you just never had the belief that they were going to win. Now it's like they actually have that belief because they've seen it. They've done it 5 times. And, it becomes contagious. When you start to win, you start like wanting to win more. And so you're like really making an effort on plays, really doing what's needed to make the difference. And, like you said, the 4 turnovers, a lot of them didn't result in points, but the one resulted in a pick 6. And, the other ones really stalled the Temple drive. So at least you have something there. I know the offense is still a work in progress. There's the receivers in running backs are, they're all right. But as time goes on, as Golish gets more and more of his recruits, it'll start to turn around and it'll start to be, you're going to start to see, crazy numbers. And they're already crazy numbers, but it's like they'll start putting up like video game numbers because it's going to be so good. I mean, I have no doubt in my mind that Golish is going to put up a top 10 offense by the time either next year or maybe even in the year after, because once he's getting all these recruits that he wants, he like you've said, we've talked about it, he's got the best recruiting class of the group of 5, and that's a huge motivation for momentum, for getting they're getting the on-campus stadium in a couple of years. So it's like all this momentum is building up, and it's like it's funny, it's like sometimes you can notice, like right now it's tough to notice it with Florida where like they're like getting to that tipping point, but it feels like USF is getting to that tipping point and that they're like almost going downhill now, where it's like before the last couple of years, it just felt like everything was an uphill battle and it was a struggle and they weren't able to like put things together. And now it just feels like we're basically like on the way. And I don't know. I mean, it's amazing where it's come from and where the potential it's going to go. But do you have any thoughts before you go?
No, nothing more than, I mean, just overall, I mean, USF could have played a better game. They really could have, run away with it early. But again, I think they just, maybe got a little too safe with it. And were kind of their own worst enemy most of the game. I think that was the biggest thing too, is that they really let Temple into the game. If USF was playing 100%, fully invested, not saying they weren't, but like really into it, they probably could have won this by a couple more scores. But they had, the third down lapses, a lot of penalties, and the offense couldn't get the ball moving on crucial moments. So it could have been a much uglier score. But again, it's a lot different when I'm looking at like a Florida win with like this. When it's USF right now, I'll take the win. And they're, now you've got UTSA and Charlotte, and one of those two, and you're going bowling. I can automatically tell you, after seeing the practices last week, this week, that is the mindset, is any means necessary, find that 6th win.
Definitely. All right, dude. Well, I'll talk to you. Hopefully I can see you Wednesday. And then
yes,
if not, I will be in town the following Monday. So I'm thinking about doing a Wednesday show on campus at USF before the basketball game on Wednesday night, if you're down for that.
Yeah, I'd be down. Absolutely.
Cool. All right, brother. Well, have a good weekend, and I'll talk to you later this week.
All right, man. Take care.
All right, later, Ian. Okay, so the rest of the show is just me. So let's do the USC game real quick, and then we'll jump into something that I want to talk about. It's another coaching turmoil situation. Okay, so USC, they kind of bounced back into this game against Oregon. The final score was 36-27. The Trojans had a late score. I think, they went for 2 and they couldn't convert. So if they had converted, it would have been a 7-point game. So it would have been a 1-score game. They didn't convert, so it ended up being a 9-point game, a 2-score game. But Bo Nix looked really good in this game. He put up 412 yards, just destroyed this USC defense again. It seems to be the story with most of the teams that we cover. Florida gives up the biggest yardage total ever. USF struggles on defense. USC struggles on defense. They gave up a total of 552 yards. Just a butt whooping. Oregon made a lot of plays, in the passing game. And, it was closer at the end, but Oregon was pretty comfortably ahead there. The offense looks great for USC, and that's obvious with Caleb Williams, a generational talent. but and a lot of other pieces, Branch, Rice, Lloyd, a lot of really good pieces. Just their offensive line can't really seem to block very well for Caleb. The defense is just atrocious, and they fired their defensive coordinator Alex Grinch, and they still seem to struggle. It's going to take an offseason to really implement a new strategy scheme and get tackling back into shape, because it's just terrible. It is not good. So they lose, and now they're 7-4, and staring the barrel down of possibly even 7-5, because they've got UCLA next week, their last game of the year. So we'll see what happens there. Okay, speaking of UCLA, so my friend Richard, who's a 728 member, just like myself, he had texted or messaged me regarding the situation with Dante Moore. Dante, he is not happy. His family members have been saying some stuff about how he's not happy, and he hasn't been happy on the sideline. Richard was obviously not happy with what happened in the game, but I think you had to take the game with a grain of salt. Schlee is the third string quarterback because Garbers was hurt. So Schlee was out there, and he's not, a very accurate quarterback. And he was 11 of 18. They didn't even pass that much because he's not very accurate. And he was almost about 50% completion percentage. They tried their best, and their defense is very good. And they kept him in this game until the very end, until, they were too tired, basically. Because at that point, I think Arizona State had the ball 36 minutes. Like, they just couldn't. UCLA couldn't keep the ball, and the UCLA's defense, tried their best, but at the end, when they needed to get a stop, they just couldn't get them off the field. They were too done at that point, and UCLA loses 17-10. And with the thought process of A&M now firing their coach, Boise State firing their coach, it again becomes the thing of, okay, is this cycle an appropriate cycle to fire Chip Kelly? Does it do you any good? I think if Dante Moore stays, I think UCLA poses a better path forward. They need to figure out what it is to make him happy. Obviously he's not happy currently. And so if they continue down this path of, I don't know. It just seems like there's a lot of turmoil right now. They're 6-4. They have the USC game next week at the Coliseum, and then they have, I think, a game against Cal the following week. So, they could win these last two games and be 8-4, and 8-4 is a huge step in the right direction. I think Garbers is going to be back next week, which would be huge for UCLA. Either way, they need to have Garbers or Moore play, because with Schlee, they don't stand a chance against USC next week, regardless of how bad their defense is. They need to be able to score points on offense, because as much as the defense is very good, it's going to be tough to try to keep USC under like 28 points. And so if they need to score 24 plus, they're going to need to put up a good passing attack. And with Schlee, it's not the case. Okay, so moving on to other games. The first game, actually, after the games that the teams we talk about, it was the Thursday game with Virginia and Louisville. Back and forth game. Louisville had to come back in this one. They made a lot of really good plays. Guerrero had that 73-yard touchdown for the win. Just a great game to watch. Virginia is not a very good team, but Louisville kind of probably took them too lightly. Virginia got back in the game with a couple of turnovers, a pick six and another turnover that really kind of changed the complexion of this game. But like I said, Louisville gets the win and now sets themselves up. I believe they clinched a berth in the ACC championship. I think they have. I'm almost positive they have, because Miami now is their only other game. And I think they beat North Carolina. No, they did not play North Carolina. I don't know what the tiebreaker is with North Carolina, so I don't know how that works. I do apologize for that, but I'm not sure how their tiebreaker works with North Carolina. So that means I'm guessing if I'm not seeing reports that they clinched it, that means they have to beat Miami, or North Carolina has to lose, or some kind of fashion. Because sometimes the tiebreaker is tied into certain things like the playoff ranking or whatever, which it could be here. I'm not seeing. So, but regardless, Louisville gets the win. I hope they keep winning, because I want to see them go up against Florida State. And, and not that Louisville is the greatest team, but at least it seems like a much better team than most of the teams that Florida State has played. Okay, moving on. Michigan, Penn State. I watched a big recap of this one. Besides Blake Corum and Edwards for Penn State, Donovan Edwards, they're not really an exciting team, Michigan. I mean, their defense is strong, but like outside of those two players, they don't really have like stellar wide receivers. JJ McCarthy is quite average. He had 7 of 8 passing for 60 yards. 60 yards passing. I know that they wanted to go into a defensive back and forth, run the ball, 3 yards a cloud of dust game, but that is not one. For all you people out there trying to hype up this kid for the Heisman, that is not Heisman numbers. I'm sorry. I don't care who he is in a big time game against a big time opponent. 60 yards passing is not going to get it done. And if you try to argue that he is a Heisman finalist, you should be thrown out. People that have Heisman votes that try to say that should have their vote taken away. Like literally, there's no reason McCarthy should be invited to New York. I don't care if he's the quarterback for one of the best teams in the country. He doesn't deserve to be there. And speaking of that as well, Alar, for Penn State, this kid, you know what? I'm not going to like bash him. He's just been, average at best. And, in the 2 games that mattered the most against Ohio State and Michigan, he came up with like completion percentages under 50%. And, he got that late TD, and it's, he got a late TD against Ohio State as well. So you're almost saying like in the 90% of regular time of football outside of garbage time, he has like no stats against these teams. And it's like, how do you expect a team like Penn State to get over the hump? And, now you have James Franklin, who just cannot win these big games. He can just never beat Ohio State and Michigan. He is, at this point, he's just a guy that beats all these bad teams of the Big Ten, which there are plenty. And I will say, James Franklin, guess what? You know what you got coming in? You've got USC, you got UCLA, you got Washington, you got Oregon. So you have these 4 really good teams coming in. So now you're going to have to play 2 of them every year. So now instead of getting that Illinois, getting that Northwestern, that Maryland, that Indiana, that Minnesota, that Nebraska, all these terrible teams that you get to feast on every year, now you're getting 2 more quality teams. And so you're going to have to really actually try. So instead of where James Franklin, could have easily coasted by, but you know what I will say, it will give him the opportunity now to get in the playoff, because the 12-team playoff gives a team that is 9-3 the chance, where years past, if you were 2 or more losses, you were not having a chance at the playoff. You definitely, it's a different story come 2024. So Michigan wins this one 24-15. This is probably the first time I've watched Michigan highlights all year. I'm not going to lie. I don't want to watch stuff where they beat teams easily and don't have any competition, which was 9 games out of the year so far for them. So I'm glad they finally played someone. I'm glad it was a contest and not just a, roll out of bed and get the 30-point win. But until they play Ohio State, until they play in a playoff game and actually do something, please change my mind, because as of right now, this is what I feel about you, Michigan. I don't feel like you deserve to be one of the top 6-7 teams of the country. I think like Texas is a better team. I think Washington is a better team. I mean, it's just Alabama's a better team. I just don't think Michigan deserves to be there. Okay. Speaking of Alabama wins 49-21. I was amazed by this one because Kentucky has looked good in some games. They destroyed Florida, and they've looked bad in other games. They looked bad against Georgia. They got kind of beat pretty bad against Missouri. But this game, they got just the doors blown off, and they lose 49-21. So Alabama, Milroe, Saban, everything is rolling right now. Milroe is defying the odds. Everyone was like, oh, this guy is not good. This guy is not an accurate thrower. I said the same thing. He is an athletic freak, and he's fast as hell, and he can make plays at all times. The no play is ever dead, and, he's accurate enough, which is pretty similar to what Lamar Jackson is. So it's like, if he can be somewhere near Lamar Jackson, not that he's going to be that, but that he can be similar to that, that goes a long way with especially a very good defense that Alabama has. Held Kentucky to 21 points, and I think Kentucky got a late touchdown. So it really was only about 14 points that they allowed them. Just another big performance for Alabama. They only have 2 games left. I think they have a tomato can next week in the cupcake week. And then they have Auburn, which they should beat Auburn, but this Auburn team has kind of come on a little lately. But yeah, Alabama outgained them 444 yards to 253, 23 first downs to 11. Just a stomping overall. Like I said, 49-21. Okay, moving on. Texas Tech, Kansas. This was a crazy finish. It was 16-13 is the final score. Texas Tech wins. Kansas scored a couple of late field goals to make this a game. And then Texas Tech gets the ball late with I think it was 26 seconds left, gets down the field, kicks a field goal, wins it. Just remarkable game. Kansas had their backup in there, Ballard, which is third string quarterback. So they were definitely, hurting. Bean was in there for a little bit. I guess he got hurt. I didn't actually see what actually happenend because I only really saw the ending. The other highlight packages were way too long. I really couldn't spend 26 minutes on a 16-13 game. But the last 5 minutes of the game were really great finish. But this Kansas team had a shot at getting to the Big 12 championship. They're now 7-3, so they're more than likely not going to get there. But huge win for Texas Tech. Okay, the big game of the day outside of some other ones. Well, this wasn't the big game of the day. This was a huge rivalry game where there was a lot on the line for Florida State, not that much on the line for Miami, because Miami was already 6-3, had a couple of losses. But FSU, undefeated, still trying to pursue that playoff spot. I watched the whole condensed game on YouTube today, and Miami was able to run the ball. This defense can be had. FSU's defense is not strong. Miami's quarterback is not very good. Emory Williams, he got hurt making that 4th down play, which was terrible, and I feel bad for him. But he's just not an accurate quarterback. He's young, so maybe he'll come into it. But Tyler Van Dyke came in late, and he threw an interception on that 4th down, just trying to throw it up there, see if anyone can make a play. But Florida State hangs on, wins 27-20. Trey Benson had one good run all game. And, again, he seems to be nowhere against these like good defenses throughout the last couple of years. And you know what? Hey, I know he does well against these terrible teams and puts up huge numbers, but it's like when he finally plays a good defense, he usually struggles. And so I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan of this Florida State team. I think if they actually play someone, you know, Clemson has 4 losses, LSU has 3 losses. Those are their 2 big wins. Duke has 4 losses at least. You know, those are their 3 big wins, and that's like, what is that? That's 11 losses between their 3 biggest wins. That's kind of terrible compared to like Washington beating a 1-loss Oregon, or beating a Utah team with 3 losses. That's 4 losses between those 2 teams. And then like Washington being USC, which now USC has 4. So that's what, like 4, 3, 1. So that's 8. I mean, I guess it's not that much of a difference, but still, I think those 3 teams are way better than the teams that I mentioned in Clemson, LSU, and Duke. And maybe LSU offensively is probably the only team of those 3 that is worthwhile. But you know, Washington's a great team. Oregon's a great team. Utah has a really great defense. USC has a really great offense. Okay. Not much else to say. Florida State gets the win. They'll get a win next week against a cupcake. And then they'll play Florida at home, or Florida in the Swamp, which I know I'm a homer on this one, but I still think Florida has a good shot against them because it's a home game. It's a senior night. And, you know, I don't know. It's a rivalry game. If it's a night game, it definitely bodes well for Florida. I think it will be a night game because of the fact that Florida State has a chance to go undefeated. So I think they would want to see that at night instead of an early daytime game. Okay. Speaking of that Washington team, Washington wins 35-28. They shut out Utah in the second half, and they scored 11 points to come out on top. You know, it was funny because they had that like turnover returned, nearly a touchdown, but then the guy fumbles it on the 1 thinking he was already in, and just kind of like what was going on. But which they could have been up by more, but they get the win. Penix Jr. just looked amazing again. You know, his placement on his passes is ridiculous. He's just such an accurate passer when it comes to the placement of his passes. I mean, Adunze, a beast, just had a heck of a game. Only 3 catches, but 111 yards because 2 of them were for long TDs. Just a amazing game for them. You know, Utah, I feel bad for them because, you know, it's a team that if they had Cam Rising, this would be a completely different season for them. And they already have 3 losses. But this Washington team seems like a team destined to get to the playoffs. If they keep winning, there's no way that they get shut out. They have to get in the playoff if they're undefeated. They're number 5. They've been right on the doorstep. Someone in front of them loses, like Ohio State or Michigan. They're right there in the mix. So I'm looking forward to this Washington team going forward. Okay. Tennessee, Missouri. This is a huge surprise. Missouri kind of like stomped them, but it was closer because it was only like 22-7 in the 4th quarter. And then Missouri kind of got away with it at the end. Schrader for Missouri had over 200 yards rushing and over 100 yards receiving to lead Missouri to a 36-7 victory. You know, Milton was kept in check for the most part. He, you know, he still had 267 yards, but, you know, this Missouri defense is strong. They kept him under 350 yards, and Missouri was able to put up 530. So, again, for next week for Florida, this is going to be a tough matchup because the Missouri can score, and also their defense is strong enough to put a hurting on Florida's offense. So this will be a tough matchup for Florida going into Columbia next week. Okay, next game, UCF, Oklahoma State. This is a huge surprise. I thought Oklahoma State was turning a corner here, going to make a run for the Big 12 championship game, but now it opens the door for Oklahoma. They only have 2 conference losses, so they still hold the tiebreaker with Oklahoma. So we'll see there. But UCF 45-3, just blowout city. This game was never close. I think they were up like 24 in the first half, 24-0, and just took it to them. So UCF gets the win, surprising a lot of people. And now they're 2-5 in conference. So we'll see what happens in the following 2 weeks. I think they have UCF has Houston and Texas Tech. The Texas Tech game is in Lubbock. I can see Texas Tech winning that game, but I could see UCF definitely winning the Houston game, but we'll see. Okay, good win for them. Georgia, Ole Miss. Georgia blows out Ole Miss 52-17. This game was close at first, 14-14, and then in the second quarter and into the fourth, Georgia scores 4 straight touchdowns and a field goal. So they scored 31 straight points. Just remarkable what they were able to do. And then once the game was out of hand, the Ole Miss got a late field goal. But this game was never close once, Georgia figured out their defense. They were able to run the ball successfully. A lot of huge, big runs by Milton. He had a big day. He had 127 yards on the ground, only 9 carries. I mean, that's a big day. That's a high average there. And Dart struggled, only had 112 yards total. And they only passed the ball 17 times. That's remarkable considering that they probably dropped back way more than that. And as far as sack totals, they had, Georgia only had 2 sacks, but still just a terrible day at the offense for Ole Miss's offense. So Georgia gets the win. And, I thought they were going to be challenged in this game, but they were clearly not. Now they have the Tennessee and Georgia Tech games, so we'll see if they get challenged there. But if not in those games, they more than likely will be challenged against Alabama, which I like Alabama in that game as well. So we'll see from there. We got 2 more to go, and then that's the end of the show. So real quick, Oklahoma steamrolls West Virginia 59-20. It was, Gabriel was playing very well. So this game was not like completely a blowout until like the second quarter. And then Oklahoma just took it to him. And then Gabriel had 423 yards. They get the win, not out of the mix yet for the conference championship game. So, the loss to Oklahoma State hurts, but they have a real shot if they just keep winning, and they have to hope that Oklahoma State loses one. But big game for them. Their defense played well. This West Virginia team was no slouch as of late. They were 6-3 coming into this game, so they were definitely a decent team. So it's a big win for Oklahoma, especially after losing the last 2, one to Kansas and then to Oklahoma State. Okay, last one. Very good game to the very end. It was kind of Texas was toying with TCU, kept them in the game, which has seemed to be Texas's MO the last couple of weeks, largely to do with the fact that they had a backup quarterback, Murphy. But Quinn Ewers came back in this game and was there. And so he was solid in some aspects, gave up an interception, but he still had 317 yards passing and recovered from that shoulder injury. Jalen Brooks, not Jalen Brooks. What is his first name? Jonathan Brooks. Sorry. Jonathan Brooks. He had a really good game, 104 yards on the ground. The Texas defense kept TCU in check for a while, but then in the fourth quarter, TCU kind of turned it on, and TCU was able to put up a decent amount of points and yardage there to really kind of change what the end stats were. But Texas gets the ball late and is able to run out the clock. And good win for Texas. Continue on their journey into the Big 12 championship game. They have 2 games left against Iowa State, at Iowa State, and then at home against Texas Tech. They should be able to win both of those games. And if they win both of those games, oh no, Brooks, I'm just seeing this. Jonathan Brooks tore his ACL and he's out for the year. Oh man, that is tough. Oh, I didn't know that. That's real tough. Oof. Gosh, that is brutal. I didn't realize he did that. That is tough. Tough to hear. So they'll have to find a way to figure out the rushing attack without him. I think there are some decent guys there, but definitely a huge loss for Texas because Brooks was putting up huge numbers all year long. So that is the show. My name is Chris McLean. I'm the host of Hater Radio. I want to thank Ian Gibson, my co-host, for coming on. And I'd really like to thank Mike at Just Getting Better on Twitter. Mike is a great friend. He is a very thoughtful and knowledgeable football mind. He played college ball, and it's great to have him on, especially because he's a huge Gator fan and he goes to a lot of the games. So it's good to have his perspective. Me and Ian have been talking about it the last couple of weeks. So I wanted to bring Mike on just to give a third, just a different mindset of what we maybe need to be looking at. And it was refreshing to hear his thoughts because, it's one thing to see stuff on Twitter because, you're limited on to your characters, how much you can talk about stuff. But, with Mike coming on, he definitely expounded about what is the perspective and what should be the thought process going forward with Billy Napier and Florida. And so as Florida fans, we are here. We're at this moment where it is probably the most frustrated we've all been. Muschamp gets fired. McElwain gets fired. Mullen gets fired. All those guys were under 4 years. It's at the point now where it's like Mike said, you need to let this play out. Mike Norvell was given the opportunity to see things through, and they went from 3 wins to 5 wins to 10 wins last year, and now they're already at 10 wins again this year. So clearly, if you have some patience, things will pan out. It's frustrating as Gator fans because we want results. We want to see, big wins, and it's been a 15-year, hiatus from, the point of when Florida, specifically, I like to, the biggest turning point in Florida's trajectory was when Florida lost that SEC championship game against Alabama in 2009. And since that point, it's been chaotic, been some good times, but it's been very chaotic since that point. So just be patient. Hopefully the more wins will start coming. The recruiting is there. Like Mike said, OC will probably be hired next year in the offseason, some changes on defense. And, you never know what can happen going forward. So I like Billy as a head of the program. I think he can do things for this school. And, I'm not going to give up just yet. So that is the show. You can follow us at hater_radio for Twitter, TikTok, Threads, Instagram, on YouTube. at Hater Radio. For Facebook, it is Hater Radio CFB. For email is haterradio1@gmail.com. Thank you for everyone that came on. You folks have a nice night. Enjoy your weekend, and I'll talk to you on Wednesday for the preview show. All right, take care.